Cyberpunk 2077 and its developers deserve an apology. Let me explain. Not only is this game absolutely fantastic in 2023, but I'd be willing to say that it's always been this way. In this video, I'm going to show you just how great Cyberpunk is today and why you should have played it in the first place. And by the end of this video, you'll be typing an apology to the CEO of CD Projekt Red while simultaneously buying a copy of the game to play for the rest of this week. Okay, maybe not quite that extreme, but you get the point. If you load up Cyberpunk 2077 today, you're going to find the game that everyone expected at launch. An incredibly immersive open world experience unlike any game you've played before. There are very few bugs and no game-breaking glitches like there were at launch. It's jam-packed with things to do and a wonderfully written story to experience. You'll come across many lovable characters and experience some truly top-notch voice acting. It's basically the game as advertised back in 2020. A lot of you probably never even gave the game a shot due to the massive wave of negativity the second it officially launched. I know you remember. There were hundreds of articles ripping the game apart, thousands of memes making fun of it, and loads of video footage of game-breaking bugs and glitches. You were bombarded with videos and pictures of terrible graphics, stories of the game file deleting itself after reaching a certain size, and even things like this. Wow. The game didn't even stand a chance of succeeding just minutes after launching. The biggest issue and the main reason we owe the devs an apology is because this was so massively and quite frankly blown out of proportion. Yes, the game was buggy and of course there were undeniably a lot of issues, but the internet, as always, overdid it, swaying many people to not even give the game a chance or to go into it with an already negative perception. People started to hop on the Cyberpunk hate train simply because it was the popular thing to do. But the media wasn't totally wrong at launch. The game had a lot of issues. I think they totally over-exaggerated how frequently the issues were, but nonetheless, there were still many issues. Mainly, almost exclusively, on last-gen consoles. If you have an Xbox One or a PS4, it was near unplayable. This just simply is not a game that was designed to be played on previous gen consoles. There's a reason that the PC version was rated so high and given a 9 out of 10 on IGN at launch, because the game truly is amazing, but just not on previous gen tech. I played on an Xbox Series X at launch and legitimately had zero issues whatsoever. Because of the media at launch, many of you possibly may not even understand what Cyberpunk is all about and what makes it so amazing. So let me explain what Cyberpunk 2077 is. Cyberpunk 2077 is an open world RPG. No, it is not like Grand Theft Auto despite what many people expected. The open world aspect of this game is very different from GTA. If you want that, just go play Grand Theft Auto 5. GTA is more like a sandbox game than an RPG. Although yes, there is a story, you mainly just run around wreaking havoc upon Los Santos because you can. And it's really fun. This is not what Cyberpunk is about, so do not go into it thinking that it is. In Cyberpunk, you follow an incredibly well thought out and elaborate story where you only have a few days to live from the very get-go. I won't get into too much detail or spoil anything, but you have a chip in your head that saved your life but is simultaneously killing you. You take a bullet to the head at the very beginning of the game and this chip reboots you so that you're alive. But it also has a man named Johnny Silverhand, who is Keanu Reeves, downloaded on it. And the only reason it saved your life is because it's now downloading him into your brain and removing you. You only have a few days before this happens. The whole point of the story is what you do during those few days to prevent being completely erased. This is probably one of the most in-depth story games that I have ever played. The amount of detail that goes into each character that you meet and the extensive work that goes into each individual quest is truly extraordinary. This is an experience you will not forget. An experience that you were robbed of at launch because it was popular to not even give the game a chance. The whole point of Cyberpunk is to experience the story. It's a true roleplay game. The open world exploration is pretty much non-existent. Again, this is not GTA. So now that your expectations are properly managed, if you enjoy playing games that take you through an immersive story, this is 100% the time to play Cyberpunk. Now, this is where things get a little bit sticky. CD Projekt Red deserves an apology because the game is an absolute masterpiece, just not on previous gen consoles. Yet, they advertised it heavily to be playable on previous gen consoles. In fact, their main target audience would be people with last gen consoles, since the new gen had only been out for 2 to 3 months at the time of launch for the game. Plus, there was a massive shortage of new generation consoles when Cyberpunk released, so people couldn't get them even if they wanted to. Therefore, the consoles most people would be playing on were previous gen. So, typical corporate greed got in the way at launch. They knew it wasn't in a good state for last gen consoles, but it was for new gen and PC. So what did they do? They launched it anyways. That's where the problem is. A very shady move for the CEO and whoever else made that decision. But again, everyone blew this out of proportion. There were issues, but nowhere close to what the internet made it out to be. If you opened any social media app at the time of launch, the story was that the game was so broken that you were seeing glitches like this every 3 seconds. But in reality, it was once every couple of hours and only if you had last gen consoles. And a lot of the time, it wasn't even that frequently, even on last gen tech. I know this because my best friend played over 100 hours on the Xbox One S and had little to no issues at all. But so many people wrote the game off as a loss without even giving it a shot in the first place. The narrative is that it wasn't even worth it. And with Sony offering refunds for the game, that made even more people not even think to try it for years to come. But here we are, 2.5 years after the launch in 2023, and many people are wondering, what is it like now? It's extremely playable, and I mean very playable. The amount of patches and hotfixes that have released since the launch is mind-blowing. Still, there are some bugs, but nothing crazy in the slightest. If any part of you is wondering whether or not you should give it a shot, give it a shot. But don't expect it to be like GTA or any other games you've played. The main quest lines are absolutely phenomenal and unique, but it is not a sandbox game. Outside of the main storylines with main characters, some side missions are a bit repetitive. There are lots of these cyber psycho missions or these gun for hire missions that can be very repetitive, but they each have a unique backstory that, if you allow it to, will make you very immersed into the world. There isn't a million and one things to do outside of the main story or one of the main side stories, but there is plenty enough to keep you very entertained and to level your character up. There's lots of upgrades and ways to customize your character and playstyle. There are cars to buy, cyberware upgrades, clothing, apartments, and so on. It's a traditional RPG and it's very good. Don't let the media fool you into thinking that this was a garbage game. It isn't, and it never was. In conclusion, I don't think anyone at CD Projekt Red deserves an apology as much as the developers. Many people were involved in making the decision to release this game on previous gen consoles, and it was not ready for it. It's not the developers' fault that someone decided to do that. The devs worked day and night to provide one of the most incredible stories that have been told in gaming. A story you should absolutely experience. Speaking of stories you should absolutely experience, check out this video here. Talk about a game that you absolutely need to play. Until next time.